So here we are, Jizzo Chats. I'm here with my good buddy, Robbie Crane. Say
Old school.
hi, Robbie.
Hello, Robbie. I'm locked and loaded.
That's right.
I'm locked and loaded, ready to go.
Good God. You've already itched the algorithm.
That's my forte, man. I'm the itcher.
Okay. Well, let me get the Wikipedia nonsense out of the way.
Sure.
So, Robbie, you are in Black Star Riders.
Correct. Yep.
And you were in Vince Neil Band.
Yep.
And in Ratt.
Ratt.
With 2 T's.
As Scott Gorham says, is that Ratt with 2 T's?
That's right. You were in the band a long time. You were in the band with me, I guess, 6.5 years. And then before and then after. So you've been in there for a while.
Yeah, 15
When I started Adler's Appetite.
In 2004,
I think?
No, it was way before that. 2002, 2003. Because we finished in 2005 and we had done it for 3 or 4 years. So, yeah.
Through the mists of time, it's hard to remember all this shit.
And you guys
you played with me in my version of LH for years. We did a bunch of tours in the UK. It was great. And you are currently playing in Warrant.
Subbing in Warrant. Yep, subbing for Jerry.
Well, playing in Warrant.
Sure.
And we are going to be doing this Live to Rock tour in with Skid Row, Warrant,
Skid Row,
Winger.
Yeah, Warrant, Winger, Quiet Riot, and then there's some other. Yes.
And sometimes it's a Kip Winger unplugged thing, I guess, depending on the stuff. But we're playing big places this summer. Yeah. And we're playing in 2 weeks in Dodge City, Kansas.
No, this coming week.
Well, 2 weeks.
Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, see,
I'm seeing into the future, dude.
Oh yeah. So I don't even know where I'm at right now. I don't know what month it is.
Well, you're in the office.
I'm not in the office. I'm actually in the den.
Oh, okay. Of your mansion in the Hollywood Hills.
Close, in the West Hills.
West Hills.
Not far from where you grew up. As a matter of fact, I can look up the hill, look out my window, and look at the hills you used to climb when you were your youth.
Oh, yeah. Chatsworth Park.
Chatsworth Park. All the Chatsworth Hills are like right, just that side of me.
Yeah. And Rocketdyne was right next door to you.
Well, Rocketdyne is that way, but it's I'm within the 5-mile radius of an arm going out
of the nuclear fallout.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the wind wasn't blowing that way in 1959. Stop that. You're funny.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. So let me hit the 500-pound elephant in the room.
Me?
Jerry Dixon.
Oh,
what's going on? And people want to know. And just why don't you just address it?
Well, most people probably know exactly what I know. Known Jerry since I was 15 years old. Eric and all those guys and the whole band pretty much since I was a youngster. And Jerry just reached out to me and pre-pandemic and then amid the pandemic, and was just entertaining the idea of just taking some time off. He's been doing Warrant for 35 years, 30 some odd years, and it's his only band, and that's a band he's been doing. It's his band. And he just was entertaining the idea of taking some time off. So he asked me if I would sub some shows for him. So I did one show for him in 19. And then I picked up in June of 2020, or was it 21? It was 21. And I've just been subbing for him. I take it like week to week, day to day. We talk every week. He's in fine health. He's absolutely totally fine. He is the bass player in Warrant. He is he's the original guy. He's still in the band. It's his band. I'm just subbing for him and doing a solid.
What I mean. Yeah. It's the internet, and people shit talk, and so it's just on the up and up, and he just is kind of taking a break, and people do that. People do that.
I mean, here's the thing, Jiz, we've been doing this for so long. It's pretty wearing on us as individuals, physically, mentally, spiritually. If your head's not fully in that game 24/7, and the Warrant guys work a lot. I mean, it's every weekend, year round. It can be a bit monotonous, and I get it, man. If I I have an RV and I like to do other stuff, so I like to do stuff, and he's been doing it for the same man for a long time, which is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. He just, he just probably wants. I mean, he's never told me this, specifically. I'm just gathering it as we talk. He's in great spirits. He still manages the band. He runs the band every week. I speak to him every week. He's totally in awesome spirits. Those guys, the 5 of them, are all, you know, together talking and you know, planning out the Warrant future. And I'm just, again, here helping out and subbing. I'm off right now from Black Star Writers. We pick up in January of 23. And
right.
So yeah, it's cool.
Well, it's a rare thing to have 3 out of 5 originals anyway. And
yeah, well, they have 4. They have 4. Well, with, you know, minus me being there. I mean, Eric, Jerry, and Steven, they have the 4 original guys.
Right.
And then, you know, Robert Mason, obviously, you know, there's nothing you can do with Janie's passing. So they have Robert. And Robert does a fantastic job for those guys.
How long has he been in the band? He's forever, huh?
Oh, forever.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there it comes. I'm telling you. He's been in the band for, I would say, at least 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Right on.
He's a partner. He does a great job for those guys. And I mean, you and I played in so many situations together and aside, and done so many different bands. And it's not to say anything about any of the situations we've been in, but Warrant, for me at least, is the most low stress, no drama, you know, quite literally nice silence in the van sometimes, and everyone just gets on really cool.
Well, they're like Cheech and Chong. They're just totally mellow. And
yeah, they're all really mellow, even key guys, and they're fun and they're funny and their crew's awesome. And they do it right. I mean, they have their own, you know, vans, and they have their own trucks, and they have their own gear that meets them everywhere. And they roll in, they do their thing, and it's just really simple. I mean, there's absolutely no drama.
Well, you and me and Carrie have sort of been lumped into this whole hired gun thing.
Yeah,
like
a lot of guys.
Bad thing, you know what I mean? Like, we're the go-to guys. Especially in the past, we're kind of the go-to guys. You know, if you need someone, you call someone on a Monday to learn 17 songs and get on a plane on Wednesday and play in front of 1,000 people and not f up. You're one of the dudes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we're some of them. There are a lot of guys that are really capable of doing it. But in our small group, yeah, we're some of the more visible ones that are out there doing it. But you know, I think that it's a very selfless act on our end. I mean, a lot of people ask me, you know, how do you get into a situation like that? And you're so passionate about what you do, and I am. We all are. I mean, for you as the singer, you got to go up there and sell it. You got to sing it. You got to believe in it. And it's a very selfless act because we quite literally are hired to do what we do. We're not contractually bound to that situation.
Dude, it's work.
Yeah, and that's what most people don't understand. It's like we're like mechanics or plumbers or traveling construction workers. We roll in, we do our specific profession, and we do it to the best of our ability, and then we move on to the next, or we stay in that situation. It just depends, you know, for us.
Remember, we were talking on the phone, and that at that New Year's party, and that one bass player who shall remain nameless. Was kind of getting pissy about it. How come you get all the gigs, man?
There was actually 2 bass players, and they both were in pretty big bands, but you know, obviously hadn't done anything in a while. And you know, I get that a lot when people come up and go, "Hey, man, so let me ask you a question, dude. Like, you know, by the way, do you want some coke? You know, no, okay, you don't do coke? No, I don't do coke, bro. You know, you want some heroin? No, I don't do heroin. Why do you get all the gigs?" And I'm like, I think you just answered that question.
Yeah,
right there, you know,
because you're a junkie. That's why.
Well,
because no one can count on you. You have to be able, look, this is a business, dude. You have to be able to count on people, especially you're going to show up with no rehearsal based on your chops and your reputation. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's a hard thing to step in and be that guy. It is.
Yeah, it is. But it's all about, as you know, clean passport. You know, we've dealt with that, you and I, in the past with you know, certain people like, you know, can I get a letter? You know, and showing up on time, handling your business, being prepared. My family sees me here when anyone calls me, whether it's for a 2-song jam, which I don't really do anymore, but whatever. I invest myself in it. I prepare. I have a lot of self-respect, and so do you. You know, you work your tail off. I've been in a band with you. I've seen you walk up and down the hallway of the bus from noon until showtime, preparing for the show. Well, I mean, you're preparing for the show. You take what you do very
taking
seriously.
Shit from you back and forth. Back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of it, right? I mean, but you know, there's a lot that goes into what guys like you and I do that people just don't see. You know, recently, you and I have talked about this. Recently, my friend Rachel Boland, you know, with Skid Row, we're out on this you know, practice together. They called me a few days before Rachel had an appendicitis, and he had to go and have surgery, so we couldn't make the show that week. And it was an option of like, you know, does Skid Row pull off the date, thus canceling the whole date for everybody, or does somebody just step up and play? They asked me to step up and play. I've done some of the songs before with Sebastian, and I knew, you know, obviously as a fan of Skid Row, knew a bunch of the songs. So I just stepped up and played, and everyone was like, "Wow, I can't believe you were able to just do that." It's like, I mean, how many times have we heard those songs? You know, it's you know, it's about being prepared and having a certain amount of
you have to woodshed. I mean,
yeah.
When we did Adler, I remember you woodshedded for just the longest time to learn all the duff licks.
Yeah, and then I actually
like GNR.
Yeah, and then I had to teach the rhythm guitar player the guitar part, which is a whole nother. And so, you know, it's just a matter of like you know, it's just a self-respect issue. I mean, for me, I always see it as a self-respect issue. Am I going to show up to a gig and be like, you know, is it rehearsal to learn the songs? Remember that? You know, or am I going to show up prepared? And that's for guys like you and I, or most people in general. You just, if you're going to do this, my suggestion to anyone who has the aspiration to you know, dip their toe in these waters is just be prepared, have a lot of self-respect, be very selfless, show up, and it doesn't matter what you like, it's what the artist likes, it's what the artist needs. And so that's always been my motto when I roll into any gig. Like, what does the artist want? Like when I did the Love Hate thing, I could have come in and did my own thing, but there was a certain amount of respect that needed to be paid to those songs, to Skid's playing, to what he put on those records. And I was a fan. I mean, you know, I was.
Yeah, you told me about this. You and your bass player,
Johnny Martinez. Johnny Martinez, and just kind of like learned those, because they were cool bass grooves. You know, the songs were cool, and we'd seen you guys at Exposure 54 and at the Bozo Jams and all that stuff. So we were fans, and we knew that your band was not just a Hollywood band that had the image. You guys were also musicians, which a lot of those bands weren't, as we know. And but you guys were, and so it was inspiring. So when I was able to play those songs, I came in there just like any other gig and took it self-respect for me to be respectful to the band and to Skid and play those songs the best I could. And you know, I love those songs to this day. As a matter of fact, I still sit and kind of noodle on some of those songs because the bass playing is so unorthodox and cool. And
it is. Well, when you're self-taught, that's how it is. I mean, like,
correct.
He played guitar upside down.
I still think Skid's got some theory in his mind, but maybe that's just good luck.
Well, maybe some weirdo theory.
Yeah, no, he and John, you know, John's a fantastic guitar player. And Joey, I mean, you guys all had this, you know, very cool. I always thought Joey was cool, a very different drummer for the time. You know, if we remember correctly, in that time frame, everyone was falling on the floor. You know, Tommy Lee, you know, whatever. And Joey was more of one of the few progressive drummers, a little bit more progressive up top. A lot of his drumming was, you know, vocal accents and just cool, different style of drumming. And I always thought that opened the band's songs up a little bit more, as opposed to just the, you know, typical hi-hat, you know, open the hi-hat for the verse or whatever, you know, part change.
You know, the thing about the Sunset Strip scene, as you know, because you were one of the few guys that were there along with me, is that as soon as GNR took off, everybody was looking for the next GNR.
Oh, yeah.
And they, you know, Faster Pussycat got signed, LA Guns got signed. And so you can't help but think, you know, if GNR is doing so well, then you see everyone kind of, you know, mimic the same shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, you probably remember. I mean, for me at least, because although you lived out in the Valley, I lived in West Hollywood, so I was like there from when I was 12. So I would see, like, you know, early versions of Wasp and Sister and Snow and early Motley Crue stuff. So I'd seen that first wave of, you know, obviously Van Halen was one of the first wave, but in the 80s, early 80s, bands get signed, and then you saw the emulations of those bands, and then Ratt and Black and Blue and bands like that got signed and put their records out, and then there were emulations of that, and then you had the Poison era with like you're saying, the Guns N' Roses and all that. It was very interesting, but in my opinion, just my opinion, each time there was a cycle of the bands getting signed and moving on, it was a little bit of diluting of what was happening. So like you said, there was GNR, and that's a hard act to substitute or follow. I always saw Love Hate more of like a Jane's Addiction, more of like
for real,
yeah, more of that, not so Poison-y, not so Guns N' Roses, although you had those elements. You had that vocal maybe like Axl, but I thought of it more, there's more vocal range to that and a little bit different melodies. I just thought that you guys were not as much an emulation as you were like a transition into that 90s kind of like.
So you were there during the first wave, like the Quiet Riot?
Oh yeah, well, just after Quiet Riot, because that's late 70s. But yes, when Quiet Riot got their deal,
like 81, 82.
81, the first time I ever went to the Strip was in 1979, and I was 11, and we would all go up with our skateboards with my friends and I, we'd be like, hey man, what's up? And because I never knew what the Strip was, but my friend Charlie Zvulin was like, hey man, let's go up and see the rock bands by the Roxy. Because, you know, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke was out, and we were like, you know, oh, the Roxy. So we were rolling up in that era on our skateboards, you know, 20 of us, you know, from, you know, elementary school. And we would just go up and down the Strip and see girls, you know, the way they dress, you know, late 70s, early 80s. So like age 79, 80 is really when I first went up there. But when I really started to go up there consistently was like 81 to 87, 88, you know, 89, you know. And so I was in there from a really young little kid, you know, with my short hair, and then eventually 15 I started growing, 14 started growing my hair out. 15 I was playing the troubadour in Dream Suite, and
you were in 100 bands.
No, I wasn't in 100 bands. I was in like 10.
Oh, what? And 98 bands.
Yeah, but like you and I, the difference between you and I, you know, Data Clan, is yeah. So like the difference between you and I and everyone else in the world, or most people who grew up in Hollywood, is that all of those kids that, you know, learn how to play guitar in their garage in Ohio or wherever, and then started their first band, and they would play in the backyard for their friends and stuff. You and I were playing clubs for our first bands. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like my first
band, and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, the first band I ever was, you know, picked up a bass and like, oh, with my friends, and we were awful. We played the Troubadour. So that you know, my first gigs were at the Troubadour as opposed to someone's backyard party. You know what I mean? So for me and for you, you know, our teeth cutting was on the Strip. You know what I mean? Right. Playing. Yeah. So when people go, oh, dude, you were in so many bands. I'm like, I was in 10 bands before I joined Vince Neil's band, but that was like from the inception of my first time picking up the bass guitar to, you know, when I was in bands that paid me. I mean, there was a time from when I was about 17 and a half on that bands would pay me a weekly salary to play in their band, which is kind of crazy at that time. But I was, you know, getting paid.
Real.
Yeah, because it wasn't because I had a hustle. It was because, you know, I was a young kid and I was active, and I grew up in Hollywood and I worked for Poison. I was the bass tech for Poison. So I knew a bunch of people. So a lot of bands thought that if they got me in their band, it would make them popular on the Strip, which may or may not have been relevant. I mean, I, you know, maybe had like a 20 or 30 person following that would actually come and pay money to see my band. But I don't know that changed much. They saw value in that. So New Haven, you know, a lot of those bands would, and now it's funny because a lot of bands are releasing records, which are demos that I played on. And I didn't remember playing on some of the demos, you know, and it's a trip to see and to hear. And when you look back, you know, wow, the 16 or 17-year-old you know, recording stuff, you just look back on it and yeah.
Well, it's a cool thing. I mean, I talk about it in some of my earlier things about it was a moment in time, and people ask me about it, and it's like trying to describe the first Woodstock or, you know, you have to have been there.
But every weekend, that's the key. What most people don't really comprehend is the Strip was like a Renaissance fair, the swap meet, Woodstock, the US Festival, all of those things in one, you know, a strip club. It was like all in one. Ancient Rome. It was like all from Doheny all the way down to, you know, the Tower Records, or, you know, it was just rocking. And on that northern side of, you know, of Sunset, right? I mean, it was just going off from the time. Thousands of people. Just thousands of people. And you didn't need money for beer, although if you wanted to, you know, drink, you could. You didn't need it. You could just sit on a corner and just see everyone walk by, and you would meet chicks, and you would meet people from Monrovia or from San Diego or from Bakersfield. They would all come in, and you just would hand out flyers and meet people. And I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, people don't really comprehend it. That they see like the decline of Western civilization and go, well, that must have been cool. But to me, that movie captured just a microcosm of the end of it. I thought it was pretty dead by that point. It was dying at least. And for me, I mean, I remember the first time I ever saw Guns N' Roses, because Slash went to Fairfax and my sister knew Slash. She did their flyers. She's like, oh, Slash's band's playing at the Stardust Ballroom. Remember the Stardust Ballroom on Hollywood and the 101 over there? And it was a 7-Eleven benefit for something. I forgot what it was for. It was like Ruby Slippers, Guns N' Roses, and Poison was headlining. And that was the first show I'd ever did for Poison. So I was like, oh, I'm working for the band Poison at that show. So I went and I saw, I don't know how early of a version, but it was the 5 original guys. And I've known Steven Adler since I was a kid. And I knew Slash because he, grew up in my neighborhood, but he was older than me. And so I saw that early version. And to me, that night, Guns N' Roses, Ruby Slippers, someone, maybe the Joneses and Jet Boy and Poison.
Wow.
I was like, wow, this is a cool, small snapshot of what's gonna happen on the strip. And those bands eventually, there were early versions of those bands. I mean, CC had just joined Poison, so Poison was already doing pretty well. But they were just what was going to happen. And I remember kind of watching. So I was at the street scene, working for Poison with Guns N' Roses and Poison. And when the riot happened, I had to cover Bob's gear. So I was there for a lot of some of the cooler stuff, the really cool era. But people don't really. I mean, it's hard, like you said, it's hard to kind of, what was ancient Rome like?
Well, it was like Vietnam, trying to describe Vietnam to people. It was like combat because it was badass, but it was also really competitive. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There were so many good bands. I mean, there really were. You talk about Jet Boy, LA Guns. I mean, I remember when I was talking to some roadie from LA Guns to go, we're getting this guy out from England, dude. He's a star. His name's Phil Lewis.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was just this killer moment in time.
Yeah, I remember when they had, because Tracy went to school with me as well. I remember Paul Black when he was in the band, and then I remember Phil coming out and thinking, somebody told me that, that guy was in the band with a guy from Def Leppard, and I was like, wow, it just the English accent made it so much cooler, and then Chaz took it to the next level. But I love you, Chaz. I'm just busting. But it was new to us and to the LA scene. And dude, I remember Tammy, and this is another funny thing, is I've known Tammy since I was young. And when I would come out of Fairfax when Poison was recording the first record at Music Grinder on Melrose right there in Gardner by Antonio's Tammy would come by the school and meet me and pick me up. And sometimes he would be in like pumps and a mini skirt. And people would be like, hey, what's that? And Tammy, Tammy's a pretty tough cat. He'd be like, I'll kick you, you know what I mean? He would get pretty crazy. But I remember Tammy when I was young, 15, and he would be like, yeah, I'm going to start a band called Faster Pussycat. And I would think like, that's an odd name. Like, what an odd name for a band. And like so many musicians that we were friends with, like we were talking about the strip, you would meet people that weren't in a band, but that were like, yeah, I'm a singer, I'm a drummer, I've got a band, it's gonna be huge. And you're like, fake, he's full of shit. He's not a musician, he's just a shit talker, right? And doesn't play anything. Well, Tammy, I always thought, just in my own world, because he was, I'm a singer, I'm gonna start a band. I was like, okay, all right. I didn't think anything of it until he put together Faster Pussycat. And I remember the first country club show that they opened for Poison, Ricky got him on the bill, and I was like, Tammy's really in a band. Like, I want to see this band. And he came out and he had these white tassels, like a blue shirt, like Ozzy's first on that album cover with Ozzy with the white tassels. He came out in that same style shirt, and I was like, dude, this is gonna be terrible. And they were killer. I mean, it was like exactly the band. It was the same band that made the record.
They had a thing. I mean, they had their own thing. At the time. But Tammy's songs, the way he wrote, he was cool on stage. He was like Steven Tyler meets like kind of Brett at the time, but he was awesome. And it's funny because you see Jimmy DeAnda is another one. I never knew he was in the band, and then until he released the Bullet Boys, and you're like, holy heck, just a lot of those guys, a lot of those people that you didn't really realize that they were real legit musicians, were just under our noses, Well, we were there at the right place at the right time. The strip was badass, and all the record companies were looking for the next GNR. Yeah. And it was a great time. And then it had its day and it was over. And then obviously after about 1992, things changed. When did you join Vince Neil?
Well, so for me, let me see here. I joined Vince's band in March of '92. About 92, but the strip had already, in my opinion, it was like an emulation. It was like a lot of people saw Guns N' Roses or saw the Decline of Western Civilization and moved to LA, and then they were like, oh, I've read the Platinum Rainbow, I've watched, you know what I mean, the Decline of Western Civilization, I'm going to move to Hollywood and be outrageous and change my name to, you know, to Figgy Miggy, you know. And so a lot of people, you know, whatever, yeah. And so it was kind of like the 10th generation to me by like 89, 90 on. It just became such a, it just wasn't, I mean, I remember going there going, you know, what's this? And a lot of good bands, like I thought there were some good bands that fell victim to that era of the late 90s. Like I know a lot of people don't know who this band is, but I like them. I thought they were cool and they had some good songs. The band, the Glamour Punks, remember the Glamour Punks?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I thought they were cool, and I thought that they had a cool image. It kind of reminded me of like a New York Dolls kind of thing, but they were punk and they were cool, and they had some good songs. Never went anywhere because the strip was dead by that point.
Yeah, and they were fairly outrageous. I mean, they were pretty, like,
the bass player ended up dying. Yeah, it's sad. But there were a lot of bands like that I thought, had they been a few years earlier, may have been a little bit more relevant, you know. So
it's all fate, dude. It's all luck and fate and right place at right time and having a song that kicks ass. And I mean, there's just all the unknowables about, but we were at the strip and it was rad. And
absolutely.
So talk about Vince Neil. Talk about the
time from the
talk about the time you did with Vince Neil. I mean, how many records?
Yeah. So for me, you know, hanging out in the strip and stuff, I was in the I guess you would call it the last band. The last strip band I was in was a band called Monroe with a guy named Rick Monroe. He's a country artist now, but Rick was a cool guy. Yeah, I love him. Yeah, Rick's cool. I mean, Rick and I had some awesome times together, and we wrote some great music together, and we had a couple of really cool bands. But Rick was going out with Cherise Neal's little sister Shanae, and Cherise was married to Vince Neil at the time, you know, when he was in Motley Crue, and they had a brother named Gary. So Gary and I became friends through Rick, and I would hang out with Gary all the time, with Eric Turner and Sean Crosby from Jones Street, and we would just, the four of us were like the four, you know, amigos, and we went everywhere together. So I would be at Vince's pool, just sitting, you know, up in his house in Chatsworth, and he would never talk to me. He would like come out and he'd be like, hey, Eric, because Eric, you know, Warrant had toured with Motley Crue already, and hey, Eric, what's up? Hey, Sean. And he'd look at me and just kind of be like, who's that dude? And I'd just be laying there like terrified that he was going to throw me out of his house. Long story short, he leaves Motley Crue March of '92, records the song You're Invited to Be Frank and Come, and asks me to be in the video. So when I show up to the video with my bass guitar, like that morning, I show up with my bass guitar that morning, like I'm like, you know, cool, I'm gonna be in the video. I see Phil Soussan and this hot blonde chick from behind, turn around, it's Vic Fox. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh wow, you know. So I'm like, oh, they already have a bass player. Maybe they just want me to be in the video, like in the crowd. And so Vince comes up and is like, hey, is that your guitar? And I just said, no, I don't have a guitar. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I have all these Les Pauls from Gibson. So he loans me a Les Paul. And I end up playing guitar in the video. That's kind of was how I joined the band. I was never a guitar player, as you know, in any band. I was always a bass player, but I could play guitar. So I joined Vince's band playing rhythm guitar. So if you look like the MTV Movie Awards from '92, I'm playing rhythm guitar to Steve Stevens, who later joined the band for that video shoot for the MTV Movie Award and to do his first record. So, you know, we went through that whole process of doing the record, went out on the Van Halen tour. I'm sorry, Phil Soussan, who was our bass player, left the band. I went back to bass. You know, we brought Dave Marshall in, out with Van Halen. You know, I was in that band from '92, I guess March of '92 to August of '96, and we did 2 records in that time frame. A lot of touring and a lot of really good times, a lot of crazy times. I met my wife on that, you know, playing with Vince, and you know, Vince was cool, man. Vince was, you know, straight off the Motley days, and he was very good to me, really treated me well, and you know, I was a drunk idiot, you know. It's like
I have no recollection of 1990.
Yeah. Any kid, you know, I was 22 years old. Any kid that gets a bunch of money that quickly, and to me, a bunch of money would have been $500, you know, much less $50,000 or $100,000 or $300,000. You don't because, you know, as you know, I come from a very poor background. My parents, you know, were working class at best, and we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with my 2 sisters. It was 5 of us, and so we were pretty poor, and so I came from kind of nothing, and so to have some money I didn't know what to do with it. You know, the first thing I did was when I got money, like the day Vince gave me a check for 50 grand, I went and bought a little BMW. I was like, cool, I'm gonna buy a car. Because I had a truck that broke and I didn't have anywhere to live. And he eventually got us all these really cool condominiums in Woodland Hills. Vic Fox one, me and Steve Stevens had one. And so, you know, he took really good care of us for those first 3 years. And he was very good to us. And I'm very appreciative of that. But you know, I was like anyone else that got money. I went out and went to FM station and got drunk and Catherine's
Everyone, dude, everyone did that.
Blue. I mean, I would see Brent Woods when he got his money from Wildside. He got his publishing deal. He would have, you would watch the Laker games and he would be courtside. And I would be like, that dude's just blowing through money. Just, you know, buying courtside Lakers seats. I'm like, Jesus. But, you know, it's funny. We all, you know, you get what money you get in advance, as you know, and then you know, you're expected to live on that. And that
no one tells you how to
correct.
handle it. So you go crazy. You know what I mean? It's almost like you have to blow so much to learn the value of money, and then you sort of pull back, and then you get a better appreciation of, hey, wait a minute, I better not, you know, I better start thinking about the future and stuff like that.
And the problem was with Vince was that he kept, you know, including us in on advances and stuff. And he was getting millions of dollars back in those days. So we would get, you know, a fair chunk of change. And it just kept coming over like a 3-year period. So for me, I was like, you know, my introduction into the industry was, you know, oh, here's 100 grand, you know, go buy some gum, kid. You know what I mean? And I was like, in a hole, you know? And so for me, I just kept, you know, thinking it was like a piggy bank that kept giving. So, you know, toward the end of Vince's band, you know, I was not doing great. I was okay, I had some money, but I was like, now what, you know? And luckily for me, there was like a 2-month transition, and the tour manager that we had in Vince's band, Larry Moran, had also left at that point and was working with an artist on a Japanese label called Blue Dolphin, and the band featured Stephen Pearcy on vocals, Al Pacioli from Alice Cooper on guitar, and this Japanese billionaire kid on drums. And so they needed a bass player. Larry brought me into that, and that's how I met Stephen Pearcy. It was called Vertex. We went out with Man of War, and we did that for like November of '96 to January 1st of '96, or New Year's Eve, and then and they paid us ton of money. They just had a ton of money, and it was like, you know, ask for 20 grand a week. And so, you know, they just paid us all this money. And then we, from that, I met Pearcy, and they were putting Ratt back together at that point. And they're initially going to have your boy, Rudy Sarzo. They wanted to have Rudy Sarzo on bass. And so Steven kept telling me, yeah, we're going to have Rudy Sarzo because Juan is not wanting to come back right now. And I was like, wow, cool, man. You know, awesome. Good luck, man. And so that was kind of the end of our conversation. We did our New Year's Eve gig. We both went home. And then about 2 months later, he calls me at like 11:30 at night. And it's like, hey, man, we're rehearsing tomorrow at Mates. Come down to the studio and let's play. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't hear from anybody, but okay. I was thinking Vertex, you know what I mean? Because we had just done Vertex. Right. So I roll down to Mates at 11 in the morning, and Bobby from Mates is out front washing the driveway down. And I'm like, hey, Bobby. He's like, hey, man, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm here for Stephen Pearcy and Vertex. And he's like, there's no one here today. Like, Stephen called me, but I never booked any time. I was like, what? So I called Stephen, no answer. I go back home to Northridge at the time I was living. And he calls me at like 12:30 or 1. And he's like, where are you at? I go, dude, I went to Mates. And he's like, we're at Audible. Come to Audible. I was like, oh, my God. So I was like, I don't even want to go anymore. He goes, no, come. I told him you would come. So I'm like, all right. So I drove to Audible. I literally pull in. I walk into the Audible entrance, and Bobby Blotcher's standing. He's like, you're late. And that's literally how I joined Ratt. I walked in.
The beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. And it's Bobby, Stephen, and Warren. And we didn't even play any Ratt songs. We just went right into working on the songs for 5 days into that record collage. So that's how I joined Ratt. Yeah, and it was literally, dude, it was 6 months. So from the time I had left Vince's band, I went and did Vertex for a couple of months, and then I was in Ratt. And so I was pretty lucky in that my ball, you know, kept some momentum to a degree. And then, you know, up to 2000, and remember we did that tour together. Was it 99 with you?
Yeah. I was in LA Guns. It was the first Poison reunion, big deal.
It was a Ratt
sheds.
Yeah. It
was great. It was killer.
Yeah.
That's when I sort of hung out with Steven and kind of got to be buddies with him. And
yeah.
It was good.
That was a fun tour. tour. That was a really fun
then
tour.
And then Steven left.
Well, yeah. So end of that tour, we had Kerry Kelly playing rhythm guitar on that tour.
Right.
He had just come in. You guys had Chuck Garrett playing bass, and yeah. And it's funny how incestuous and how all of our paths cross, weave, in and out at times. And people don't really comprehend that they're like, he came from nowhere. It's like, well, kind of, but not really. I mean,
well, it's a small community. It really is.
Absolutely. And when you know this, when you play with bands and you see the opening band and you see some killer musician, you go, wow, that guy's great. What's your number? Because you never know down the road if you need, or you may, need somebody like that. So we had Kerry in the band up until that point. After that tour we did with you, we did a fall run, and there was so much infighting in the band at that point, whatever, that's their business. But Steven left for whatever reasons. And we had some commitments for that summer. And I remember that we started looking at singers, and I said, what about Jizzy? And so you came down one time, remember? And you had long hair, and you played with us. And then that was the first round. And then we didn't make any decisions. And then we had to do a showcase for Sony Columbia, because we were
right.
For Claudia and them. And so they were like, we want to see you with the singer like today. So they wanted it like the end of the week. We pushed it back a week, and we had auditioned or jammed with Robert Mason. Robert Mason sang at the thing. It was just a formality. Donnie Einer and them were like, look, it's just a formality. We're not going to re-sign the band. So we did it. It didn't happen, and it wasn't by anyone's fault. It just it wasn't the Ratt that they had signed. So we were gonna have another round of auditions, and I remember you came to my house and you cut your hair. Do you remember that? You came to my house and you're like, dude, I cut my hair. And I was like, oh, Jizzy looks cool. We got to have him down again. So I set up a microphone at rehearsal just for you. I like put, little delay on it, a little something, a little louder, a little more attitude on it. And then I said, totally cheating right here. And so I muted it and I put it on its side. And then we had two other guys jam that day. And then you came in, I go, no, sing on this mic. And then you sang and it sounded killer. And they're like, he's the guy. And I think that the band was great. It obviously, should have been Love Ratt, but
it was you, me, and John Corabi on rhythm guitar.
Well, initially it was just the four of us, and then John had borrowed my Ultras case for a Union tour, and he was returning it on the side of the freeway, and or right there off of the Kester or whatever, or Hazeltine, whatever. And he goes, he's like, hey man, what are you guys doing with Ratt? Like, is Kerry still in the band? I heard Kerry left. I go, yeah, Kerry's playing with Snake Pit now. And it's just the four of us, and we just got a singer. And he's like, well, if you need a rhythm guitar player, let me know, because I'm looking for something to do. And I go, really? So I called John Greenberg, who was our manager, and Greenberg managed Corabi. And so he called Warren, and the next rehearsal, I call you. I go, okay, I got some good news and I got some bad news.
Vroom, vroom.
I go, good news.
I need an old priest and a young priest.
Bad news. John, and that wasn't because you and John didn't get on. It's just, obviously the girl.
He was with my ex at the time.
Well, I knew, but I didn't know to what depth. And I didn't know who she was. I'd seen her a couple of times, obviously with him, I'm sorry. And I didn't put two and two together that when we would rehearse at your place in downtown off the 10 there, that was the blonde girl sitting on your bed. Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah.
Talk about incestuous, man.
Yeah, but that's life, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I thought that for me anyways, and mind you, Steven and I are great friends, and I love Steven, and it's no anything to Steven. It was just kind of fun because although we were doing something old that wasn't really ours to do, it was Warren and Bob's to do. It was fun because for me, you and John and I, and all of the cast of characters that we brought in, from Waldo to Caesar to Craig Bradford to all the different crew guys that came in, Roy Kelly, all those different people that we, Darren Meeks, all the people that we toured with, they all made they all had and played there. Remember Pork Chop, the guy Pork Chop, the drum tech for Bob for a little while. He ended up passing away. Chris, he was a really good guy. A lot of people. Jeff Rader, who also passed away in the
How do you remember like this Rolodex of roadies from? You're naming these names, and some part of my brain registers. Oh yeah, that's right, Roy Kelly, because he got stabbed.
Yeah, remember him?
He had to leave the tour.
The tour.
Got stabbed in a bar by some guy. Yeah.
With Karabi. Yeah. So it's you know, I think about how for us there's a lot of stuff that people don't get to see, you know, a lot of the behind the scenes, because you know, you, John, Craig, me, I mean, all of us, all the crew guys, we were all on the bus together all the time. Bob and Warren would always.
It was cool for a while. For the first bit, it was awesome, and we did some good tours. We did that 2000 tour
with Warrant, and who else was on that?
LA Guns.
Warrant, that's right. Was it Ralph singing? No, it wasn't Ralph. It was
it was Phil.
Yeah,
it was Phil. Yeah. And then we did the 2002 with Dokken.
Yeah, Rock Never Stops.
And then we did the Cinderella tour in 2005.
Yeah, but there were so many tours. I mean, we toured a lot. Every year we toured. Yeah. So at least twice a year we would tour. So
5 months a year at least.
Yeah, and those were like the name tours or the package tours. Sometimes we just go out by ourselves. I remember one tour we did in 2003, and it was so bad. We were playing like the Nickelodeon, you know, bowling alley and stuff. You know, it got dark for a little while. But I think that our spirits were always up. We were always like, hey man, we're getting paid to play rock and roll.
Well, and you know, we were good. I mean, the bottom line is we were good. You know, talk about your 3-part harmonies and all that shit. I mean, we actually took the time and you know, we were good, I thought.
Yeah, I just thought we were fun. I thought we were cool, and I always had the hams. You know, remember the hams, the corral of hams for every city I would roll in. Again, we could sit here for 4 months and go through.
Well, good times. It was good times, and then at a certain point for me,
for everybody,
it wasn't good, and I decided to leave. And you know, Steven came back, and then you continued on.
Well, I actually left with you. We both, when at the end of 2006, when they were you were already wanting to leave, and so they started to go to Plan B. They were like, you know, now what do we do? We had a talk, and I said to them, I mean, what's the best course? I mean, you guys should try to reform with the original guys. So I stepped back as well, and I wasn't in Ratt from I guess November of 2006 until the tour, April or May of 2007. And in that time frame, they had been in discussions with Juan and Steven to possibly reform with John Karabi. And that was what was going to happen. And it was quite literally like May when or April, late April, that Jamie Talbot called me and said, hey, you know, we may not bring Juan back. You know, what's it going to take for you to come back? So I renegotiated something, and then I came back to the band at that point. But so I think I had left when you left, to be honest with you. Yeah, because I know I wasn't in the band for a while. Yeah, and then and I kind of was like, to be honest with you, I had reservations, a little apprehensive about rejoining the band, not for any other reason other than my own personal thing. I was like, I don't know if I want to continue doing this. I don't know if I want to do this band anymore, if I just want to go look for something else. Or, you know, we had been playing in a bunch of different situations with different people. So it had, I just had aspirations of doing other things. We had gone to England together. I wanted to go to Europe and work, and I loved Europe. I thought that would be something fun to do, because it was a market that I hadn't really explored as much as I had done. You know, every band I'd ever played in was from LA. You know, all the musicians I just knew from LA. So it wasn't like I expanded out of that LA market, you know. So
well, check it out. That's a good segue. Like, let's talk about Adler's Appetite a little bit, because you and I did get to go to killer places in Europe with Adler. I mean, we went to Greece, we went to Turkey.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was totally amazing. So we were the first incarnation of Adler's Appetite. You, me, Carrie Kelly, and Muscat, and Steven. And then we went out, and Guns N' Roses hadn't been touring for a long, long time. So when
he was doing the Chinese Democracy band, right?
Yeah, but when we went to Spain and Italy, dude, it was like 800 people. 1,000 people. It was crazy for a while, for the first year.
Not so much just the people, but going bananas, like rioting people. So it was, you know, obviously the weight of Guns N' Roses and the spirit of that music resonated with a lot of people. And Steven hadn't been out since, I guess, Farm Aid, you know, was the last time he had played with anybody. And I remember him and Jamie, his brother, tried to put together versions of something for him, but no musicians took him serious, because for one reason or the other. And Carrie called me and said, hey man, I'm working with Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, and do you want to come down and jam with us and play bass? And I said, yeah. I go, what's up with him? Because Stefan Deek and I are a good friend of mine. And Stephen was very close to him, and Ryan Roxy had worked with him, and they were worried about him, not so sure that he was going to be able to do anything beyond just hanging out and jamming. So I said, well, we need a singer. I go, what about Jizzy? Remember, I think I told you this. And Kerry's like, yeah, killer, great. So I called you, and he goes, I can get Brett Muscat because we're playing together in LA Guns. That literally, we went down to Orange County that first rehearsal. Do you remember that?
Right.
And we rolled down, and Dumb Brad set up the drums, and Dumb Brad, remember? and Fast Tommy, when I called him Fat Tommy, I go, you're Fat Tommy. And so, yeah, man, I thought that when we first played, and remember, we weren't called Adler's Avatar, we were called Soupy Jones.
Right. Our first show was Boulder Station.
Correct.
In Vegas, and
it was packed.
I remember when we finished I think we played the first song was Jungle, and the crowd.
No. We opened with It's So Easy.
It freaked me out because I just go, Jesus, people really went crazy at first. It was nutty.
Yeah, just to see Steven playing again, and in all fairness, I mean, I played with Steven a year or so ago. He played great. I mean. He hadn't played in so long. I mean, drums are a physical thing, and Steven's not the most statuesque individual. I mean, he's a thin, skinny guy, and but that swing. Do you remember when Izzy came to rehearsal or to sound check at the
Key Club?
Key Club. He just comes in out of no one knows he's coming. He's coming, sets his amp up, plugs in, starts playing, and he played 2 bars of the song and stops and texts Slash and goes. Then Adam Day walks in 2 minutes later with Slash's amp, and then Slash walks in. I mean, it was literally like a 5-minute period. We're playing with 2 of the original guys, so it's 3 of them. Steven had that swing, that specific feel that sounded like Guns N' Roses. And when we would play, not that we sounded like them because we're not those guys, but we did our best to emulate what was on those records. Steven just led that charge with his swing. I mean, he was so good. For better or for worse, whatever night he was on. I mean, I personally thought Steven played fantastically. And it's funny because we just, like I said to you, did this Dio thing a couple years back, and we played Rocket Queen. And he had Tanya, who plays in Whitesnake, was his bass player. And so I kind of came in, and the Constantine guy was singing. I kind of came into the rehearsal at his house, and they were playing already. And then I put she plays with her fingers, and she's a great bass player, but I put my bass on, playing with the pick, and he and I locked in, and he just looked at me. He's like, Papa, you and I looking so tight together. And it was so instantaneous because we'd done so many shows together, us as a band. And I mean, dude, Palma de Mallorca, remember all that stuff, in the Palm, and some craziness where Adler would miss some flights or whatever, and we just had, it was a blast.
Well,
and then,
the thing was good about it was, like I said in the beginning, I noticed that there were a lot of people, negative influence people, that would try and get backstage and just wanted to draw him into the bad, the negative. And we had to kick a lot of motherfuckers.
Well, when we first came up on board, there were a lot of those people, like Dude with the Van. Remember Dude with the Van with the vaporizer? And a lot of those people, like you said, the negative influence. I remember our trip to San Francisco. When I drove one van, and then Steven was in another car with the vaporizer, and we went up and we did some shows up there, and then we came back, and I remember driving on my way back. We were in the van. I think you were in the passenger seat of the van, and in my head I was thinking, we're either going to make this into something, or we have to not get involved in this, because there's a lot of idiots around. And so I think when we came back, we had a talk with Steven, and we said, listen, we could do this, but it needs to be on a certain level, and the people that you're surrounding yourself with are negative. And I remember we had to go out to, after we played some gig, I forgot where it was, but we had to go to the van and get our shillings.
It was a big deal because
literally
they were clinging.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because they'd never been in the industry, and they were just a bunch of dudes and a bunch of potheads or whatever. And for me, and nothing on potheads, but I remember me physically thinking, I'm going to beat the living shit out of every one of these motherfuckers if they get in my way, and almost wanting to yank that fat fucker out of the van and beat the shit out of him for making me walk out to the van to get my shit. And just the way he kind of threw it at us, I was like, you're done. So
he did literally throw it at us.
He threw it at us, yeah. So I said to Kerry and to Steven, I'm not doing this anymore unless we do this right. So from that point on, we got an agent, which was Chuck Bernal and those guys. And we kind of ran it ourselves. And I thought it was cool, man. Remember the backpack with the money in it? And I would, I would be walking around with all this money in my backpack, and then I'd lay it out on the bed and divide it all up amongst us. And it was hard work, but it was very fun. I mean, we didn't get rich, but we did okay. And
we did good, and we made the EP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We did good stuff, but we were still in Ratt at the time. So it was still essentially a side project. And I think that, we helped Steven a lot because we're alphas, you know what I mean? And we sort of we were a tribe.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we were doing it. I know we weren't doing it because for our own ego and benefit. We were doing it for the collective, and it came off. I know that later on, it's not saying anything about the people that came on after us, but I don't think they quite grasped the dynamic. I think they just saw Steven out there successful doing his thing and didn't realize how much work behind the scenes that we were doing, with a lot of blocking and a lot of get the hell out of here and throwing people out of the dressing room.
A lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of times. I mean, nightly we had our positions. Carrie would sit with Steven. You and I would stand closer to the door. We would keep people from coming back and offering the drugs. And it's not that Steven was that weak, but you don't offer an addict, or have it around.
Well, and they wanted to party with Steven Adler. That was the thing. That was their thing.
And I get it. I mean, Pamplona and the yeast incident. You know what I mean? It's like you think about stuff like that, and it's just people just wanted to be around him, and I totally get it. I mean, he is the drummer from one of the greatest bands of all time, and made one of the best rock and roll records of all time. And he's a really sweetheart of a guy, and he was to a degree very gullible and very easily influenced, and so I mean, I think that for us and for him, obviously it couldn't work out for us because it was hard for us to want to put all of our eggs in that basket, and for obvious reasons. And it's not Steven's fault. It was our own. We had day jobs, and we were in
Ratt. We were touring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it was 2005 that we did that 2005 tour that finally was the nail in the coffin for us. And I totally understood when he said to me, "Look, man, you guys are off doing your thing. I want to work. I want to go out and tour. I want to play." And I get it, man. I totally get it. It's just unfortunate. And not the players, and not even the people that ran it. It's just, the circumstances that surrounded it at the end just, lent itself for it to go.
He had to go through his own baptism of fire, and now he's grown up.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a good guy. We see each other now, and he looks great, and he plays great. I mean, I've said to people, I mean, that's the guy from Guns N' Roses. This guy. I mean, he plays and you feel it. I mean, again, I just played with him and it was fantastic. I mean,
nobody really sounds like him. He sounds like himself. He sounds like that Appetite record. It's just, he's got that swish. You know what I mean? It's
just the way he sits, the way he places that snare, and it's just so natural to him. And he's a great guy, man. And I enjoy his company. I enjoy seeing him, that smile on his face. He's in such a good place right now. And they're just, he's doing really good. His band's really good right now. He's got a pretty good band, and they're doing great. Yeah, man. Good for Steven. I love Steven. And I sent him that.
Why you got to be so negative all the time?
Yeah.
Well, you played with me in LH, as we said, for years and years. We did a bunch of tours and stuff. And we played with, you just got knocked off. There you go.
I had a phone call. Somebody.
Yeah. We played with Carrie. We did different tours and stuff, and it was fun for a while. And what about Black Star Riders? When did you actually join that band?
So I had done a thing, again, very incestuous, with Carrie Kelly in Russia in 2012, and it was a band that he had with Rudy Sarzo, Rudy, James Kotak, and Ripper Owens, and Teddy Zigzag, and they. Rudy couldn't do some shows, so I subbed some shows for Rudy and James, and then James couldn't do some shows, so Jimmy DeGrasso came in, and I met Jimmy DeGrasso through this situation, and so a year later, this is 2014 now, end of 13, beginning of 14, Jimmy DeGrasso reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you play with the Pick?" And I said, "Yeah, maybe." "Well, yeah, I play with Pick. Why?" And he's like, "Well, I have a band I want you to audition for." But I was playing with this pop singer named Daniel Powder at the time. And I was kind of enjoying.
I remember that.
Just doing a pop gig. It was so easy and the players were cool and it was just such a fun gig. And we'd gone to Russia and to China and to all the Asian territories in Europe and America. I mean, Daniel was everywhere and it was a fun gig and he was a really good guy to play with. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do any rock bands. I just want to play with Daniel right now. And Jimmy's like, come on, man, I already told him that you would audition. So I was like, what's the band? And Black Star Riders. And I was like, oh, I never heard of them. And so he sends me a link. I listened to the record. And to be honest with you, when I heard the record, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's kind of like, and I didn't know who was in the band. Truthfully, didn't know who was in the band. I just was like, oh, it's kind of Thin Lizzy. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's got like a double guitar thing. It's kind of cool. So I texted Jimmy back and I go, yeah, okay, well, how, where are they? He's like, well, they're from London, or they're based in London. And I was like, wow, there went that, like, my desire. Because I'd been playing with Daniel and kind of going around the world, but like, hey, that might be a good opportunity for me to get into a world band, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll audition. So they were out with Skid Row. And so I looked them up after he said, okay, let's set up the audition. We're out with Skid Row, and I will be at the Agura Hills Canyon Club, which is right by my house, in 2 weeks. So, maybe we could come and audition there. I said, cool. So I looked him up, and then I found out, Scott Gorham was in the band, David Johnson was in the band. I didn't know Ricky, and then and Jimmy, and Marco. So I learned the 4 songs that they gave, 5 songs, and I went to the Canyon Club, and I walk into sound check, and I put, Marco's so awesome, and I play through Marco's gear, and I have my P-bass on, and Snake Sabo stands in front of me, like right in the pit at the Canyon Club while we're auditioning. He's going, you suck. And I'm like, great. He's kidding, but I mean, the whole time, like all 5 songs, he's like, you suck. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I'm playing, and I got Scott. I didn't meet Scott. I just walked up on the stage, and they're all sound checking. All right, we're gonna have the bass player play with us. And I kind of walk up and plug in, and they're like, oh, hey. And Jamin's like, hey man, real cool, and let's go. And we just start playing. We play the 5 songs, and I swear to God, it was like, they all kind of look at me and go, all right, man. And they hand their guitars to their techs, and they all walk off stage left. And I'm standing there. And Marco looks at me, and he goes, oh, you did good, man. Don't worry about those guys. And I was like, okay, I guess I blew that. So I unplug my bass, and I get in my car and I go home. And so they were going to Japan the next day, and they call me, call me from Japan like 2 days later and go, you got the gig. And I was like, I got the gig. Like, you guys didn't even acknowledge me when I auditioned. So that's how I got the gig. It was in April of 14. And so I went out on the road with them for a week at the end of that tour, and got to meet the guys and kind of, hang out with them a little bit more. And then I was in England in June. I went straight to England. We rehearsed, and we just went out and did a whole tour that whole summer. And then we came back in August and went to Nashville and recorded that Killer Instinct record with Nick Raskulinecz. And that's how I joined the band. Pretty quick and pretty simple. And
people in the US, they don't realize Black Star Riders is pretty huge over in Europe.
Yeah, they do pretty good in the UK. Yeah. The UK is their big market, and Europe to a degree. And then we've done some good tours, Def Leppard, Whitesnake tours. We've done some Judas Priest tours. We did Judas Priest in America in 18, in South America with Alice in Chains in 18. I mean, we've had some really good opportunities and some really good tours. Great guys in the band, really nice, hardworking guys, great songs. It's a really cool band. It's hard because, with guys our age and playing rock and roll outside of Europe and the UK, there's no calling for it. America is about techno and hip hop, and there's no support for bands like that, of that ilk and that genre. So the US market's been hard for any newer band to break, of our age and up. I mean, Damon Johnson has since left the band, and we have Christian Martucci, who plays in Stone Sour, and with Corey Taylor, he's our guitar player. Scott, Gorham has just recently retired from touring. He's going to do some select dates with Thin Lizzy. And so it's the 4 of us right now. And so we're just we did a new record with Jay Rustin with Earache Records, which is the new label that we just signed to. We were on Nuclear Blast forever, did 4 records for Nuclear Blast, and we just did our 5th with Earache. And so, we have a new record that's going to come out in January, and we're excited. Actually, we're going to shoot a video in 2 weeks. And then the first record, the new record starts getting singles released in the coming months. Yeah. Dude.
Why do you get all the gigs, man?
I'm so busy, it's terrible. But in the interim, I've been out with Warrant, and with you, and we got to do one show together so far of these, like you're saying, all of these dates that we have this summer, which are going to be really cool.
Playing big old sheds. It's badass. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't look, you know, you and I've talked about this in the past. I never look at what we're doing or what's coming up. I just kind of like, you know, like I thought, you know, I have this app, which is kind of cool. The Warrant guys are very easy to work with. There's no drama. It's very simple.
Well, I'm talking about like the production. Like you brought up the fact that when we were doing the Ratt and we were playing some Hooterville type shit. I mean, we'd walk in and they'd be soldering the PA together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that when you play these big amphitheaters, I know that when someone hands me a mic, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the staff and you just know that you're handled because everyone's a pro. It's just that
legit.
That makes me feel good that I'm, you know what I mean? There's not going to be nonsense.
Well, who was our sound guy? Was Randy Mueller our sound guy back then in Ratt? And were you there when James was our sound guy?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
James too. What do we used to call him? James.
Shrek.
Shrek. Shrek. James would laugh right now.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
And Randy and I see each other periodically. He's doing Foghat now, and so I did a Warrant. We did the Rock Legends cruise, and Foghat was on there, so I got to hang out with Randy. He's the same. He looks the same. The Count. Remember how we would glide? He would just like glide from spot to spot.
It's funny because I think about all the good times that we did in bands and stuff like that, and I tend to just focus on the good times. You know what I mean? But there was a lot of stupid shit too. But you don't carry that with you like baggage. I like to think about all the badass times and just the years and years and years of being on a tour bus and you know, having fun.
Yeah, it's you know, you and I've talked about this a million times. The truth is that a lot of people can do what we do. A lot of people do what we do, but to do it as long as we've done it, you know, that's a testament to our, you know, to ourself and our determination and our drive and our willingness to be a glutton for punishment, yet to be, you know, it's that thrill that you feel. It's addicting. I mean, you get to go out on stage and get paid to be, you know, to live your dream and to be a rock star and to be a rock musician and to play with your friends and to enjoy free catering and you know, it's
good catering. Not jalapeno poppers.
What's wrong with jalapeno poppers? But a lot of people don't comprehend how blessed we are and how lucky we are and fortunate we are that you know, a lot of our friends maybe did it for a little while, a run, maybe they shot to the top and made a ton of money really quick and then they died out and now they're maybe broke or maybe not, I don't know. But for us, it's people always say to me, man, you've been doing it for so long. I'm like, you know, I always seen myself as such a blue collar musician. I've never been here. And I've been here, but I'm more here, just like steadily.
Well, you're a working Joe, dude. I mean, that's how I look at it. Exactly. It has nothing to do with me not thinking, you know, that I'm at a certain level and then I sing, you know, at a certain level or whatever. It's just about work. It's about always hustling for work and having work and feeling good about the work that you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it. And if it doesn't really get better than that.
No. I feel so fortunate. Like the Warrant guys and I talk about this. I just can't stop admiring how well they put their situation together and how conducive it is to just being peaceful and happy. You know what I mean? The way they roll, that there's no, it's all just, it's like it's all good times or they don't want to do it. And I love.
Well, that's the thing. It's when I first started doing LH back in the day. I mean, we fought all the time. I mean, but you have that energy. And it just, you're willing to put up with stuff. But when you get older, you just don't want to put up with nonsense. You don't want to put up with people showing up late or being fucked up or, you know what I mean? Or just fucking up. You don't want to deal with it anymore. You know, and sorry, you know, we want to do things a certain way. And like QR, it's the same thing. It's just kind of a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Everybody knows their lane and it's easy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and just a bunch of good guys. Same thing. Alex is such a cool cat. I got to do a tour with him, obviously with you at Love Hate in like 2003 or something like that. And then I got to do the Hookers and Blow with him, which we used to always joke about, you know, that name and stuff. But I got to do it with Dizzy and him and John. And then John, you know, what a cool cat. I mean, dude, Typo Negative, he's such a good guy. And I love Typo Negative. And then, you know, the infamous Rudy Sarzo, and not infamous because not infamous or anything, but just the, you know, he's such a legend and he's such a nice guy and he's such a cool cat. And you guys are, it's a good situation. I love that for you, that you're in a really good situation with a bunch of good guys.
Well, and it's fun. And like I said, I mean, I was hanging out with you guys at breakfast at the hotel the other day, and it's just a whole different thing. It's like tribes within tribes. Everybody knows each other. I mean, I've known Warrant for over 30 years. You know what I mean? I knew those guys. I've known those guys forever. We were on the same label back in the day. And same with Skid Row. Skid Row was one of my first big tours. You know.
Oh, you went out with Skid Row?
Yeah, on the Slay to the Grind tour in '91, we played these huge arenas and in Europe and stuff like that.
Yeah, Love Hate did Ozzy. You guys did AC/DC.
Yeah, right? We did a bunch. But yeah, I opened up for when Pantera and Skid Row were playing together in '91 or '92.
So you opened for Pantera too?
Yeah, well, which I would say to any up and coming band, don't ever open up for Pantera.
Well, I don't think there's a problem with that anymore.
There's no way that you can achieve, because when they go on, it's just, you know, they're huge.
Massive.
That's when they were vulgar to display of power.
Vulgar display of power, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Wow. The power. Yeah, they're still one of my favorite bands, and they were for a long time. I used to run on the treadmill to them on the Vince tours, and he would be like, "The hell are you listening to?" I'd be like, "You don't even want to know." It was, yeah. I love Pantera. They're great.
They were, yeah. Your boy used to weightlift before he went on. He'd come up to me and he goes, "I like to lift weights before I go on stage," and I just, okay.
We used to do
that's not what I would do, but that's
but remember we used to do push-ups and we used to lift weights.
But for him, it would get him in that kind of aggro, you know, Mike Tyson thing where he would get up and do his thing.
I remember I had those weights on our bus, and we would do our push-ups and our weights, and we were like getting all gunned up, and Robbie would come in with like a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and his glasses, and he'd lift one weight and go, "All right, I'm done." I talked to John the other day. He's so awesome. I love John.
He's weird. Funny. I mean, that Ratt. That was over 20 years ago, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think I posted something about a video with Vince, a photo of Vince Neil. We were out with Van Halen, and I was like, this is almost 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. When you think about, you know, how long ago some of that stuff, and a lot of people still, you know, and it's no disrespect to them, they're still like, yeah, I was in that band. It's like, you gotta, you know, keep going for yourself, or maybe that's enough for some people. Yeah, I don't.
Well, some people can't get along with other people. You have to. Being in a band is like a marriage, and there's compromise, and some people just don't have that ability to get along with other people. They just they start, you know, getting weird and shitty and stuff, and it's just. Especially when you're a hired guy, especially. I mean, you just have to, you know, you have to know your lane, you know, and that's all.
Yeah, and that was my problem, is I've always been a reckless driver. Remember my bunk? Remember how I get the wood when we get on the bus, and I would make my like little TV stand in there, and I'd put my TV. I had a tube, like a 13-inch tube TV in my bunk, because, you know, we toured at times when there were no TVs in the bunks. And I would put my PlayStation in there. Do you remember that? I'd have my bunk all decorated. My own blanket.
You had your quirks on the road for sure.
What do you mean my quirks?
Quirks.
Yeah, I'm a creature of comfort, and I like to be comfortable. Like when you dislocated my shoulder, you know, I like to be.
I thought you played better.
Remember Karabi's face? He was like, "Oh, what did you do now?" I'm like, "Oh, hang on a second, my arm."
Yeah, for about 20 minutes, dude, I was sweating bullets for about 20 minutes. I just going,
stop. You know. It's funny. It's funny because it happened. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, when we saw each other with the other day at the hotel, you and I have that, you know, that like brotherly thing that we do, and we start arming each other, and we're like, "Oh, what's up?" And the Warrant guys are like, "Whoa, is everything cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just me and Jizz. That's how we are."
Stupid shit, dude. we used to talk on the phone for hours and hours, just talking about stupid shit.
Stupid shit. Yeah.
Stupid shit. And just, I don't know why, just because to be continued,
Yeah. Because a lot of nervous energy, a lot of just, camaraderie and, I was friends with your brother, Bill, and we have a lot of history together in all of that. And so, we went through a lot of, I think for you and me, at least, when our friendship or our path passed or connected, you were kind of coming out of the LA Guns thing, and you were kind of like, writing books. You were starting to write books, and you were starting to do your first solo record. Do you remember that? It was like you were living over there in Van Nuys. Yeah, right by me, and I was living in Van Nuys too. And so I think when our paths crossed, I think that it was a good time for both of us. You know what I mean? I was looking for something new to do, or someone new to connect with, and you were, just doing what you did. And so we both benefited each other in that, we got into Ratt together, and we just fell into this dumb luck together, because in truth, Ratt was going to break up. The Ratt was going to be done for a while. And then it was like, now what? And some bands will wish that we didn't do it. But I'm happy that we did. And Steven and I are great friends to this day. And I love Steven, and we've done some really fun things together, but so have you and I.
Well, that Ratt catalog, I always remember, it was every single song was killer. No filler in that Ratt set. It was just, It was great. Just so many good songs. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, Ratt was fun for what it was when it was. But it's so long ago for me. And I'm very appreciative for the time. I had a blast, and Bob and I chuckle about it now. And Steven, I was with Steven recently, and he's like, "Man, you were in the band for a long time." And I'm like, "Yeah, I was in the band for a long time." I probably should have left sooner, but I'm glad I did that last record for me, because I was able to kind of have some finality to it, some closure, you know what I mean? And it solidified my thoughts of like, I need to move on from this. And it's not because of anyone other than myself, you know what I mean?
Well, and you're right. I talk about it, and I think about it, is that the fact that having longevity in this business is hard. I've been doing it for 32 years, since the first Blackout record came out. And it's just, when things happen, you got to keep moving. You got to keep, and things will present themselves like, fate. You'll meet someone that will lead you to another gig. You know what I mean? Because it's meant to happen.
Yeah. It's the old saying, be careful who you step on your way up. Or, we did that show. I was speaking about the Adler thing. We did that show at the Pound in San Francisco with Adler's Appetite. And I just how I traditionally am with every musician that I meet, I'm just like, hey, cool. The opening band's bass player didn't have an amp. And so I gave him some Roto Sound strings, and I go, hey, use my amp. It's just a rental. I don't care. Well, later on, fast forward years later, we're like hanging out, and we're playing with Tesla. And the guitar player, Dave Rude, comes up to me and goes, hey, man, do you remember me? My band opened for you in Adler's Appetite, and you let my bass player use your amp, and you gave him strings. We always thought you were the coolest guy. And I was like, oh, cool. So you never know who you're going to meet. You know what I mean? Dave's a fantastic musician and doing extremely well. And it's just, he could have been like, oh, you're that jerk that wouldn't let us, you know what I mean? But it's just, you never know who you're going to meet. We're all just musicians. We're all just trying to enjoy this thing that we love and be passionate about
work.
And work. For me, like, the work aspect of it is cool. But for me, I'm at the point in my life at 53 where I'm just really enjoying the playing part of it again. I really fell back in love with like sitting and playing. Like today, I was sitting, or last night, the night before, I was sitting there playing guitar and just enjoying playing guitar. My wife's like, well, you haven't done that in a while. It's just so nice to just sit and be thankful that we're able to still do what we love, our passion. And we have other passions, you know what I mean? There's other things that we both like to do, but our main one and, our source of income is being musicians. And it's awesome in 2022 that we're still in need and working. It's cool. Very cool.
All right. Well, with that, I think we should close out, because and we have kept the shit talking to a minimum, which is pretty awesome.
Well, you've reined me in.
Oh, yeah.
There's not
I zap you. There's
Look,
a little zapper.
I think I could have cussed twice in this whole thing, and my wife would be impressed.
Yeah. And I'll be seeing you in 2 weeks.
It's not 2 weeks. What's the date?
May 7th.
Oh, is that your next date with us?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I play with Warrant on April 30th in Ashland, Kentucky. But I thought you guys were on that.
No. I'm playing this weekend at the River Run in Laughlin.
Oh yeah, remember we did that with our AC/DC band.
With your boy Count 77. You know, Danny Coker.
Oh yeah, Danny Coker.
Yeah.
In that band.
Who
is it? Quiet Riot?
No, Quiet Riot and his band Count 77.
Count 77. Yeah. That's Ratt.
Yeah.
Doesn't Stone play guitar in that band?
Yes, he does.
Stoney Bird is great.
He's killer, dude. He's killer.
Yeah, good guy. Really good guy.
Old school bluesman.
Very good though. Very cool. Very nice guy. Yeah,
but
man.
Not like cool. Ralph Macchio bluesman. A real bluesman.
Not like Ralph Macchio, and only in a few ways. You're more like Ralph Macchio, Karate Kid. He's more like Ralph Macchio, guitar player. So the two of you, you could be the crossroads.
Karate Kid 3. I hope. Okay, well, let's. Sounded good, and we had a good conversation. You talked most of the time, and I just kind of sat there and nodded my head like a jack in the box, like I do.
I'm a yapper.
Yeah, that's it.
Good to see you. I look forward to our dates together and to many more, good times together. And it's good to see you again. And I hope that our paths get to cross musically again, which they will, because they, at some point we're gonna end up in something together again.